The rain had been falling since morning, steady and quiet, the kind that made the city feel slower and heavier, and as evening came, Emily Carter stood near her apartment window in Seattle, wondering if she should cancel the appointment she had booked days ago. Her shoulders ached, her head throbbed, and her phone buzzed with one last work email that she chose to ignore. Emily was 32, successful on paper, and deeply tired in ways sleep never fixed. She lived alone, worked too much, and carried an invisible weight she rarely spoke about. The massage appointment had been a last-minute decision, something she booked after another long night of staring at the ceiling, hoping physical relief might quiet her restless mind. After a long pause, she grabbed her coat, stepped into the rain, and walked toward the small wellness studio a few blocks away, not knowing that this simple choice would mark the beginning of a change she could not yet name. The studio was calm and warmly lit, a quiet space away from the noise of the city, and as Emily entered, the scent of clean linen and soft music immediately slowed her breathing. At the front desk stood a man she hadn't met before, tall, calm, with a gentle expression that didn't ask questions or rush her. "You must be Emily," he said, his voice steady and polite. "I'm Daniel." There was nothing dramatic about him, nothing that stood out in an obvious way, but something about his presence felt grounding, like a pause in a busy sentence. As he led her to the room, explaining things simply and professionally, Emily noticed how safe she felt, how rare that feeling had become. She lay down, staring at the wall, listening to the quiet sounds around her, and for the first time in weeks, her thoughts began to slow. Daniel worked with care and focus, never crossing boundaries, never saying more than necessary, yet every movement felt thoughtful, intentional, respectful. Emily's body relaxed, but more surprising was the way her chest felt lighter, as if some tightly held emotion had loosened without effort. She realized how long it had been since someone had shown her simple, human care without expecting anything in return. As the minutes passed, memories surfaced, late nights at the office, missed dinners, friendships that faded, relationships that never quite worked because she was always tired, always busy, always holding herself together. Her eyes stung, though she didn't cry. Daniel sensed the shift without asking, adjusting his pace, letting silence do its work. When the session ended, Emily sat up slowly, feeling different, not just relaxed but oddly awake. Daniel handed her a glass of water, met her eyes briefly, and smiled in a way that felt sincere but not personal, yet it stayed with her. "Take it easy tonight," he said, and she nodded, unable to explain why those simple words mattered so much. As she stepped back outside into the rain, the city looked the same, the traffic sounded the same, but something inside her had shifted. Walking home, she felt a strange mix of calm and unease, as if she had touched a feeling she didn't fully understand. She tried to brush it off, telling herself it was just relief, just stress leaving her body, but deep down, a quiet thought followed her all the way home, persistent and confusing. How could something so simple feel like the start of something important? Emily told herself she was returning only because her body still needed care, yet even she knew that wasn't the full truth as she walked back to the studio a week later, her steps quicker, her thoughts louder than before. The rain had stopped, but her mind had not, and all through the day she found herself thinking about the calm room, the quiet music, and the steady presence she had felt there. When she entered, Daniel greeted her with the same professional warmth, but this time there was recognition in his eyes, a small, natural smile that made her feel oddly relieved. They spoke briefly, simple words about her week, her work, the tension that had returned. Too quickly, and as he prepared the room, Emily noticed how easily the silence settled between them, not awkward, not forced, just calm. As the session began, the pace felt familiar, yet different, as if both of them were more aware of the space they shared. Daniel focused on his work, grounded and careful, but inside he noticed small things, the way Emily breathed more evenly now, the way she seemed less guarded, the way her shoulders slowly lowered as if she trusted the moment. He had trained himself to keep distance, to treat every client with the same respect, yet he couldn't ignore the sense that this connection carried a quiet depth. Emily, lying there, felt emotions rise again, not overwhelming but present, like a soft ache. She thought about how rare it was to feel understood without needing to explain herself, how Daniel never filled the room with unnecessary talk, yet somehow made her feel less alone. When the session ended, they spoke longer than before, standing near the door, talking about small things that mattered more than they sounded: favorite places to walk, the comfort of routines, how life often moved too fast. Emily laughed softly at something he said, surprising herself, and Daniel noticed how natural it felt to hear that sound. He kept his tone neutral, his posture professional, but a quiet conflict stirred inside him, a reminder of boundaries he had promised himself never to cross. As Emily prepared to leave, she paused, her hand resting on the door as if she wanted to say something important, something that sat heavy in her chest, but the words didn't come. Daniel felt the moment too, a brief pause where time seemed to hold its breath, and for a second, he wondered what would happen if either of them spoke honestly. Instead, he simply wished her a good evening, and she nodded, offering a small smile that lingered longer than necessary. That night, Emily lay awake, replaying the quiet moments, the way she felt seen without being exposed, the way something unspoken had formed between them. Daniel, in his own apartment, stared at the ceiling, reminding himself that some connections were meant to stay unnamed, yet unable to shake the feeling that something had already begun, something gentle, uncertain, and impossible to ignore. Change came quietly but hit hard, and Emily felt at the moment her manager closed the office door and spoke about opportunity, growth, and a new position in Toronto, words that should have sounded exciting but instead landed heavy in her chest. The promotion was real, the salary better, the future promising, yet as she nodded and smiled, her thoughts drifted to the one place in Seattle where she felt truly calm. Over the next few days, the city felt different to her, as if she was already halfway gone, and the idea of leaving stirred a sadness she hadn't expected. She booked another appointment with Daniel, telling herself she needed clarity, balance, something steady before everything changed. When she arrived that evening, the air between them felt fuller, charged with meaning neither had named. Daniel sensed it immediately, the quiet weight in her steps, the tension in her voice when she spoke. As the session began, Emily tried to stay present, but her thoughts rushed forward, imagining boxes, airports, new streets, and the loss of something she had only just found. Halfway through, emotion broke through her control, and tears slipped down her cheeks, surprising her as much as anyone. She apologized quickly, embarrassed, but Daniel gently stopped, his voice calm, reminding her she didn't need to hide how she felt. That simple permission opened a door she had kept shut for years. Emily spoke about the move, the fear of starting over, the loneliness that followed her even when she succeeded. Daniel listened without interruption, his own heart tightening as he realized how much her presence had come to matter to him. He shared little, only that change was hard, even when it was good, and sometimes people crossed paths at moments they didn't expect. The room felt still, heavy with honesty, yet safe. When the session ended, neither rushed to move, and for the first time, their silence felt like a shared understanding rather than distance. Emily told him she would be leaving soon, her voice steady but sad, and Daniel nodded, feeling the finality of her words settle deep inside him. He told her he would miss seeing her, choosing honesty without crossing lines, and she met his eyes, realizing that what she felt was real, even if it had no clear name. As she walked out that night, the city lights blurred through her tears, and Daniel stood alone in the quiet room, knowing that whatever this connection was, it had already changed both of them, and nothing would feel quite the same again. Time moved forward without waiting for feelings to catch up, and Emily's life in Toronto filled quickly with new routines, long workdays, unfamiliar streets, and polite conversations that never went very deep, yet in quiet moments her mind returned to Seattle and the calm she had left behind. She tried to focus on building her future, telling herself that some connections were meant to stay in the past, but the memory of feeling understood without effort stayed with her, steady and persistent. Daniel continued his work as well, helping people relax, listening to stories that passed through the room and faded again, but something inside him had shifted, leaving a quiet emptiness he couldn't explain. He stayed professional, stayed focused, yet there were moments when he paused, thinking about Emily's honesty, her strength, and the way their conversations had felt natural and real. Months passed, and just as both of them began to accept that their connection would remain unfinished, Daniel received an invitation for a professional training seminar in Toronto. He hesitated before booking the trip, unsure if reaching out would reopen something better left untouched, but in the end, honesty felt more respectful than silence. Emily saw his message late one evening, her heart racing as she read his simple words, surprised by how quickly the distance between past and present disappeared. They agreed to meet for coffee, nothing more, keeping expectations low, yet when they saw each other again, the familiarity was immediate, warm and grounding. They talked for hours, no roles, no careful limits, just two people sharing how life had changed them. Emily spoke about learning to slow down, about realizing success meant little without connection, and Daniel shared how listening had taught him the value of presence, even when it was difficult. Walking through the city together afterward, they felt no need to rush or define what this moment meant. It was enough to be honest, to acknowledge that something meaningful had grown quietly between them, built on respect, kindness, and timing that finally felt right. What started as a simple massage had never been about touch or circumstance, but about two lives meeting at the right moment, and as they stood under the city lights, both understood that real change doesn't arrive loudly, it arrives gently, and it stays.